Hey up! Oh, welcome back. Out and about on my wonderful little classic 350 here, Norman. And hey, the astute amongst you will have realised that I am not in my usual environs of expansive landscapes in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales and such. Hey, something a little bit different today. I'm going to take a bit of a trip down memory lane for me, and I'm going to sort of try and articulate as best I can what I think the reasons are for the current malaise, and I will touch upon something that's right in front of us here: houses, affordable homes which are no longer affordable. So my earliest memories are from living at that house there, number 43, in the 60s and 70s. That's where I lived. My bedroom was at the back. Mum and Dad's bedroom was the one you can see up there, and my brother, who lived with my half-brother, a lot older than me, who lived with us from time to time, lived in the attic where you can see that dormer up there, and that's where we lived. Fond memories. Lived there in the 60s and 70s, and over the road, hey, at number 52 lived my favourite auntie and uncle, 52 there. And what used to happen of a night was, because my dad and my Uncle Cyril that lived there, so there were my Uncle Cyril and my Auntie Molly there. My Auntie Molly was my mother's sister, so my Uncle Cyril were my dad's brother-in-law, and there were a pair of ale carts, and they used to sup in the locals around these parts, and the English Electric Social Club, and my dad be getting ready there up into bedroom there, putting his Brute 33 on, or his Old Spice, about 9 o'clock of the night, and my Uncle Cyril be doing exactly the same up there, and there were an exchange of knowing glances between them, and at that they would slope out the door down to the local just about every night. Fond memories. Yeah, look at this. This was my upbringing, and friends and aunties and uncles lived all around. You know, genuine blood aunties and uncles, and then just close family friends that as kids we always called aunties and uncles, didn't we? And this was our local shop, and it's still a local shop, but long before there were any supermarkets. This was called Baldwin's, and there were old man Baldwin and his son Keith Baldwin, and Keith had an old Vauxhall Victor estate car, a blue one that always used to be parked out there, that he did his wholesale runs in to stock up. And yeah, before it became a shop that you could actually walk around, it was just a case of go up to the counter with a list and you know, tell them what you want for your weekly shop, and that was it. That was the weekly shop. Anything you couldn't get here, you had to go into Bradford. You had to go into Bradford city centre, and we did that every Saturday. But let me show you just a couple of places and how they've changed. So down here, city there where it says Woodhall Avenue, and then their green shutter doors, that was the post office. That was Woodhall Post Office, where you got your first class stamps for 3p. Hey, and any other stationery that you wanted. And as a kid I were obsessed with pens and stationery, and they always had some nice Parker and Schaefer pens there, which were great. There where it says Henry, Nail and Beauty, and House of Kitchens there, that was the greengrocers, and the greengrocers were called Overends Greengrocers. Obviously no more. So yeah, for our veg, that's where we went, Overends. Right, taking my life in my hands here. So this parade of shops here, there was Snow's Bakery there, where you could get your vanilla slices and your jam tarts and all of that malarkey. And then there, next to it, one of those two, was the local tobacconist sweet shop called Brown's. Yeah, Brown's. And on my way to school, where I used to walk, which was up there towards Thornbury Middle School, always had a bit of spending money and used to go into Brown's and get a chocky bar of some description, or a bit of coconut tobacco, or some of them there flying saucers with sherbet inside. And do you remember all them? And a bit of Spanish, or a mousse bar, a Milky Way, a fudge, something like that, whatever I fancied. fond memories. And it were all beautifully clean and tidy. And anyway, so here, this is where we used to catch the bus every Saturday without fail. Saturday morning we used to catch the bus here into town. And it used to come up here and stay on here and go all the way into Bradford, probably about, what would it be, 2.5, 3 mile, something like that. Yeah, that were all English Electric down there. And up here, there, next to that newfangled church, that was the infant school, Thornbury Infant School, my first school. And then when I got to, I think it'd be 7 years of age, give or take, I crossed the road and we went there, which is now an Aldi, and that was Thornbury Middle School. That was the local school. School gates were about here, and we used to play cricket in the schoolyard. And yeah, so I used to walk up here all the way from home and all the way back. I was a latchkey kid. I had my little Yale key in my pocket, and I'd walk home and I'd let myself in and I'd watch all the children's programmes on BBC One, and wait for my mum and dad to come home. My mum invariably at first, in the winter of course, it'd be dark by the time she got home, proper dark. And in the house I'd be left some 2-bob bits to put in the old lecky meter in case the power went off. I had to go down into the down in the cellar and do battle with the spiders and woodlice, and we'd put a bob or two, put some 2-bob bits into the old electric meter. Aye, so that's what I did. But yeah, that was the school, Thornbury Middle School. So infant school there, middle school there, and there St Margaret's Church was St Margaret's Church, but it wasn't that building. It was a much older stone built building that looked much more like a church and less like a conference centre like that. More stores here was there back then. Later on in the 70s that opened, but on here there were lots of shops. There were tobacconists and there were gallons. I suppose you call it a delicatessen type shop there. And there on corner with the Yorkshire Wine Centre. Hey, because in 1976 we moved up to this area. We live just over there. So this area is Bradford Moor. And that there is Bradford Moor Park, where I did my courting in the early days. Yeah, back then, of course, although we were very, very working class, we didn't have a car, the TV was rented, yada yada yada. You've heard the tale many a times. My mum had 2 jobs, my dad had 1, I was a latchkey kid, etc. But the thing was, we owned that house, that one I just showed you, and let me tell you now, a couple like my mum and dad back then, with a kid, me, now, would not be able to afford to buy a house like that. Doing the same sort of jobs, the same sort of social status, if you like, the same sort of wage, similar sketch, not a bloody prayer. But back then, people who had proper down-to-earth working class jobs, the important jobs, they could afford to go get a mortgage and afford to own and run a modest house like that and bring up kids like me. No longer the case, and that's a massive, massive tragedy to my way of speaking. And it's an evil that seems to have evolved for the most part since the 1980s to where we are now. And I frequently ask myself why, and I can only ever come to the same conclusion. A deliberate and concerted effort by successive governments, alternately of blue or red, but all pissing in the same pot, basically asset stripping the country and flogging it off to the rich mates. And that's what's happened. And of course all the council houses were flogged off, weren't they? Which you could argue, and there is an argument, is good for people who wanted to buy property at a ridiculously discounted price, you know, less than half what it would cost normally. Alright, well and good, but then when you don't replenish the stock that you flogged off, you do diddly squat nothing, and the population increases by some 10 million, then it's no bloody wonder, is it, that property prices have gone sky high, because it's a supply and demand situation. It's not difficult to work out at all. So back then you could get a house because your mortgage that you would get from the building society would be in the region of 2.5, 2 3/4, occasionally 3 times either single or joint income. There were various models of calculus for it, but it basically meant that working class people could afford to own their own home, and those that couldn't could very easily rent council owned accommodation. Neither of those scenarios is possible now, neither of them. Now your mortgage, I believe, is something like 8 or 9 times income, and the deposit that you've got to have is eye-watering. And how the hell young people, particularly from the working classes, are ever supposed to be able to afford something like that, I'll never know. The deposit itself beyond them. So yeah, so this is Barker End Road, and the bus used to come down here, and I used to like to sit at the front, at the top, on the top deck, And the great thing was, and it's still here, when the buses went over that adverse camber there, so they'd be in that lane there, straddle, and then they'd come over here, and the bus used to tilt quite dramatically as he went over. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, that's what he used to do. There were a couple of pubs there, both in the same building. Now, after the lights here, the road becomes Church Bank. Church Bank. Probably because back off the road to the right there, beyond those flats that you can see, is Bradford Cathedral. And the old building there, just beyond the smokehouse there, that's the oldest building in Bradford. That's Paper Hall. Paper Hall, don't know its exact date, but there you go. Oldest building in Bradford, that there. Right down here, this is Church Bank. There you can see the cathedral to the right, just beyond that red brick facade. And the bus would just go straight down there where it says no vehicles now. So we can't go straight down there, obviously, so we'll have to go right. To the left there's an area of Bradford called Little Germany, which is where the wool and textile industry thrived. Bradford Cathedral. Now, I know the government have said, indeed are bragging about, boasting about, promising us that they will address the housing crisis by building 1.5 million new homes. But guess who's going to be building most of them? Your local authorities, your councils? No, they're not. Private companies with a mandate to build affordable homes for working class people? No, it ain't. They're bringing in the likes of BlackRock and Blackstone and these massive foreign hedge funds to oversee the building programme, and what they will be building is rental properties. So I don't know if you've noticed, but in and around Bradford, but particularly in and around Leeds, these massive apartment complexes being thrown up, and they will be rental properties, and the rent will be absolutely exorbitant, I guarantee you. So what will happen is they'll be able to say, look, we've built all these new premises, 1.5 million, look, we've done it, we promised it, we've delivered. When actually they've delivered 4/5 of Sweet Fanny Adams, because a number of people struggling to find a home that's affordable will not change very much. And excuse me, will not change very much at all. And those that can afford those rental properties will find that it's costing probably about half of their total monthly income. Right, so up here, that's Kirgit there, that's one of the main shopping areas in Bradford, where we used to do the shopping. Arndale Centre up there on the right. And this particular area, Bradford's, where they've apparently spent a lot of the money. All part and parcel of Bradford City of Culture this year. And so you'll get odd new developments like that. The new Darley Market, it's where Marks and Spencer's and Woolworths used to be, all been flattened now. This has gone up. But before very long, you sort of back to this sort of thing where you've got endless boarded up premises, all that used to be well established retail outlets, little shops, businesses that were brilliant. You could get everything: shoe shops, dress shops, menswear shops, camera shops, food shops, cafes. This would be absolutely heaving on a Saturday up here, thriving. Look at it now. Yeah, and yet there's more money floating about in the world now than there's ever been. Well, none of it's coming to Bradford, is it? Other than for those little bits of bling. So we're on Upper Piccadilly now, and we'll just turn down here. And that's the top end of Darley Street there. That's the Kirkgate Centre, originally called the Arndale Centre. And when I were a copper pounding the beat round here in the 1980s, we used to have some right battles in there. Lots of the local youths used to gather and kick off. And we've had some right fights where coppers have been physically, and a colleague of mine, a female officer, was physically picked up and thrown several feet by this bunch of idiots. The markets were up there on the right. There was the meat market, Rawson market, fish market, veg market up there, no longer there. If you come down here midweek, as I do on my little delivery job, 2 days a week, that area there is just swarming with scumbags outside that leisure time there. There's some proper nasty pieces of work that gather in various states of disrepair, carrying on something shocking, supping cider, smoking all sorts of exotic substances, and generally carrying on. Pit bull dogs and you name it. Down here, Godwin Street. That used to be where it says TJ Hughes there. That used to be the Co-op Emporium. And down here we've got Sunbridge Road. And I remember down here on the left there was Wood's Music Shop round about here. Used to love going there for records and cassette tapes and bits and bats. Glad to see that this chip is still here. That's good to see. And this here is Centenary Square, again where they chucked a load of money. And up there where you can see City Park, that was the Tyrrells. That was West Yorkshire Police Western Area Headquarters and Bradford Central Subdivisional Police Station, all in the one big building that opened in 1974. And that's where I started my police career. But of course that's been flattened now. City Hall still here, of course. Yeah, and yeah, corporately owned rental accommodation. There's an example for you there. Social housing, my fat ass. Thank you. Yes, gold. What have they done? Or rather, what haven't they done? So what's basically happened, as I said earlier, I try and rationalise why places like Bradford are so malnourished of funds for the infrastructure. And it's because the available wealth in this country is becoming ever and ever more concentrated in tiny pockets. And Bradford don't qualify, I'm afraid. I mean, just look at it. I mean, this is this is how it is. You know, these were all thriving retail businesses, you know, where you could get just about everything. Likewise there, all of them. There were John Street Market here on the right, and if you couldn't find what you wanted at John Street Market, then that meant that it didn't exist. Let's go on Manningham Lane. But yeah, that's this bragged about programme a building to address the housing shortage. Don't be thinking it's going to be like 1945, end of World War II, all the key infrastructure was nationalised. National Health Service began to be created, and there was a massive social house building programme. It's not going to be that. It's going to be big, exploitative, rich venture capital, equity, hedge fund companies from abroad, mainly the States, and they're throwing up all this property, and you cannot buy it. You can't go, you know, you might get a complex goes up, and there might be 100 apartments in this complex, all very well appointed, eminently suitable to live in. You can't buy one. They're for rental only. And we all know what a mess the rental market is in, that people are just getting caned left, right and centre and paying massive amounts of their hard-earned wages just into keeping a roof over their head, which of course the landlord can choose to realise the asset anytime they want, can't they? So you're never guaranteed that you're going to be able to stay there. You're never guaranteed that you're going to be able to afford the next rent increase, are you? Obscene. Manningham Lane here. This used to be 7 beat, number 7 beat, Bradford Central subdivision. That there were, well, when I were pounding beat, it were dollars and dimes. Nightclub. So yeah, it's criminal what's been allowed to happen. Absolutely criminal. So yeah, so the question I keep asking myself is, why do governments allow this to happen? Because we have our own independent currency. We have the Bank of England who regularly create money, so we can create money and do with it what we want. So this about we can't afford to do this, that and the other, we can't afford to renationalise water and gas and electricity, all the essential infrastructure, we can't afford to do it. It's bullshit. It's just complete bullshit, because we can afford to do it for 2 reasons. One, we can create the money to be able to do it, and number 2, because we don't have to pay these shysters that currently own our national infrastructure, which was asset stripped back in the 80s. It was just completely asset stripped. We don't have to pay them diddly squat. Note, they've had their ill-gotten gains for enough years now, of these people, and when we've got our critical infrastructure, our power grid, the national grid, the local electricity providers up here, Northern Power Grid, the water companies, the gas, the electric, all privately owned, pocketed billions and billions of pounds of money, asset stripped the infrastructure and ploughed no investment back in whatsoever. They've had the day. They've had their ill-gotten gains. We should be saying to them, right, we're having it back now, and you're getting naught. You're getting nothing. It's like it says in the not-so-small print on every investment opportunity, the value of investments may go down as well as up. How many times have you seen that? That is the risk that everybody takes when they invest in anything. And if it were me, I'd just be turning around and saying, right, well, you've creamed everything off for long enough now, pal. Just go up here and show you where I used to work when I were a traffic cop. I'd just be saying, right, we're having it back. Go bollocks. Do your worst. Why aren't governments doing that? That is the question. Why are governments not doing that? And the reason is simple. They're in the pockets of the big corporate identities that own all of our infrastructure. They are in their pockets. That's why they won't do it. It's so clear. And here's a perfectly clear example. The current Prime Minister, when he was canvassing to become leader of the Labour Party, he promised a number of policies, and he did so purely to get his sorry arse elected as leader, and they were all false promises. And no sooner does he get into power, both as leader of the opposition and subsequently as Prime Minister, obviously gets courted by the ambassadors from these big corporate identities, and suddenly all those policies which were very, very popular with the public of all political persuasions, renationalisation, taxation of extreme wealth, that sort of thing, improvement in public services, all of that, it all went out the window. Absolutely went out the window. Not to be seen. Gone, vanished, evaporated. What further proof do you want? I mean, seriously, what further proof do you want? Right, this here building coming up on the left, Lawcroft House Police Station, and that's where I was based as a constable in the Road Traffic Division and subsequently as a sergeant on patrol. That's where we were, and we used to come flying out of there through them gates, blues and twos, on flying out of there, and sometimes you only get as far as, this used to be the Pile Bar or the Lilycroft. So there's a Pile Bar and the Lilycroft, two drinking establishments where there were always folk fighting. And of course this particular area of Bradford has had its issues over the years with urban disorder. And in 1995 we had a pretty big riot here while I were working out of there as a PC on traffic. Again, things like that, inner city disorder, the root of it, you know, the absolute root of it is lack of investment. Because if everybody's got a job and everybody's earning a decent living and everybody can afford a decent home and start a family, then nobody's going to start kicking off, are they? So this is Toller Lane. The continuation there's Wetley Hill onto White Abbey Road, and just beyond that set of lights down that hill was the scene of the massive 2001 riots in Bradford, which injured something like the best part of 500 officers. Injured in that, and how no police officer got killed there is quite miraculous. Yeah, just here, that's where it was, all the way down into the city. But I was born in this neck of the woods, above Pie Herbert's, which was somewhere along here, Pie and Pea Shop, and I were born above it. It might have been one of these, but I have no actual recollection of that whatsoever. But that was the very first place I lived. So yeah, this is Carlisle Road. Aye. So yeah, I'm afraid it's just a metaphor for neglect. And like I say, there's more than enough money out there to put all of these places right. But of course, those that hold all the billions, usually stashed offshore, they ain't going to be spending it on making life any better for us plebs. They just want to keep stripping out all the working class and middle class assets. Makes me weep, it does. But the reason for it is, I mean, greed is part of human nature. But governments, it's in their gift to be able to put a stop to it, and they don't, because they're in the pockets of the people who are stripping out all the wealth and causing all the problems, and who are ultimately responsible for all the social decay, the collapsing the standards of public services, the infrastructure. It's all there. I mean, no better example than Yorkshire Water, a failing organisation, endlessly fined for pumping shit into our beautiful rivers, lakes and coastlines, not fixing the infrastructure, not fixing leaks, generally a basket case company. And yet this year the chief exec, she gets paid out an extra £1.6 million by the parent company, the holding company, which of course is a foreign entity. It's just dystopian, isn't it? It sounds so utterly outrageous that I find myself questioning whether it's right and whether I'm misrepresenting the situation, but I'm not. It's all there as a matter of record. I mean, these people aren't even bothered about these atrocities becoming publicly known. Not bothered. It's in the gift of government to do something about this, but they all want the cushy jobs in those very industries, don't they, with those very corporate bodies when they leave politics. And that is corruption. The whole setup is utterly corrupt. Anyway, it's starting to piss it down, typically. So I'll wrap there. That's my take on why things are not as they could be, as they should be, and why governments are not prepared to do anything about it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Right, if you like what I do on this channel, please would you consider subscribing. It makes a massive difference to me. It really does help enormously. If you would do that and click a like, it all helps. Yeah, look at that. And with that, I wish you safe riding, hoping that I get home in one piece. And until the next time, and in the meantime, keep it shiny side up and rubber side down, and I'll see you.